Welcome back to your daytime update. The Independent Electoral Commission is meeting with several political parties to address their concerns ahead of the local government elections. The presidency has announced that South Africans will go to the polls on the 27th of October. In recent months, some political parties have been calling for a postponement of the elections over concerns about the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, for more on the worries of smaller parties, I'm joined by Brett Heron, the Good Party's Secretary General, Dennis Bloem, COPE spokesperson, and Advocate Shameemah Salie, the spokesperson for the Jamah party. A very good afternoon to all of you. But perhaps let's start first to your response to the announcement that's been made. Let's start with you, Mr. Brett Heron.
Well, we welcome the announcement of the date, 27th of October, by the President. I think it ends all the speculation and lobbying and campaigning by those who wanted the election postponed. So we now have a date, and I think it's the right thing to do to stick with the constitutional provision that a term of office is no longer than 5 years. So we're pleased that the date has been announced, and we're ready to start engaging or to continue engaging with communities in order to get their support.
Ms. Shameemah Salie, as Jamah, what is your response to this? There have been concerns, as mentioned before, about not having enough time and not having the right type of atmosphere to be able to go out and to mobilize any of your supporters. What is your reaction to the announcement of the date?
Well, I concur with Brett. We have to stick with the Constitution. There's a normal period of time in which elections has to be done. So, Jamah, we welcome the date that has been provided by President Cyril Ramaphosa. And in all due respect, we were actually working towards August, but we are grateful for the extra 2 months in order to mobilize, for the particular local government elections. So we are completely satisfied with the date at this point. We, however, still would appreciate the fact if the postal services could be used for the local government elections as well, in order, especially with regard to COVID. We have noticed that this type of or form of elections via the postal services had a great benefit in America as well. And I think it is something that has to be looked at as well in order to ensure that the citizens are able to cast their vote.
From COPE, Mr. Dennis Bloem, your reaction, are you also singing from the same hymn book as the two parties?
Good afternoon, Tammy, and fellow panelists. Tammy, we were the first to say to the country that we will oppose any attempt to postpone these elections, because the reason why we have said so is the country is in trouble. Almost all municipalities have collapsed. Now, we are very much happy that the President have decided that on the 27th of October, we will go for election. We will do whatever we can to prepare for this election, because it's very important that we must save our country from what is happening now. Vultures are eating up our country. Our country is in big trouble. No water, no sanitation. People are struggling to get clean water. That's why we are happy with this announcement, Tammy.
Let me ask you, Mr. Heron, Ms. Salie there spoke about the use of post offices as part of the voting infrastructure. Earlier on in April, we saw the IEC saying to Parliament that a new electronic voting system is going to be introduced. What are your thoughts regarding this, as well as the fallibility of such a system?
Well, I think that the most important thing is to secure the integrity of the election process and that the outcome reflects the will of the voters. I think it is important that the IEC consider other ways of ensuring that people are able to vote safely, given that we are still in the middle of a pandemic. I'm not sure the IEC can advise whether that's introducing introducing a postal system, an electronic voting system, or extending the number of days in which people can vote to include perhaps the weekend before the election date. So the idea must be to ensure that people are able to vote and are not prevented from voting out of fear of the pandemic. That must be the IEC's key focus right now, is making sure that everybody is able to participate in this election and is not prevented from doing so because they fear the contagion that is possible in crowding.
Ms. Salie, in 2019, in the national elections, we saw some instances where individuals were able to cast more than one vote. What systems, security-wise, do you believe need to be in place to ensure that this is not the case for the local government elections?
That's a difficult one. IEC is definitely going to have to really pull out all stops on protection of those particular votes, especially if we're looking at an electronic system of voting as discussed, because that is one of the options that is being looked at. So at the end of the day, that is going to be the responsibility of not just the parties, but also we have to be transparent, we have to be honest. COPE has indicated our country is in trouble, and the dishonesty in the country and the corruption that is happening, it's dire. You know, it's highly concerning. So I think that they need to ensure that by the time that local government elections happen, that they have systems in place, that there isn't a repeat of that double casting of votes.
Mr. Bloem, you spoke about the service delivery issues that South Africans are facing now, saying that you're looking forward to local government elections so that South Africans can make their choice. But perhaps let's reflect for a moment on your performance as COPE in the by-elections. If you could just talk us through your sentiments of your non-performance.
No, Tammy, we have said with the by-elections, we are not going to concentrate too much on the by-elections. We are building our structures for the for this election, local government election. You know, it is 6 months before this October elections. Now, to put a councillor in now, it's 6 months, and then we must go for this national elections. The other problem is the resources. Finances are a serious problem when it comes to elections. It is not an easy thing. It's a very expensive, election is very expensive. So we have said, let us prepare ourselves for the national elections, this election, local government election of October, to save money and to save other resources, even human resources. That's why we have not participated. But Tammy, I can tell you that the Congress of the People are ready now. There is no more squabbles in the party. Our performance will be better than all these other years of election, because everything is in place in the Congress of the People now.
Well, we shall certainly be waiting for the next elections, the local government elections, to see whether you will show there, because you literally were a no-show for these by-elections. But let me ask you, from the Good Party, Mr. Heron, your thoughts on your performance in the by-elections.
So, Tommy, we've contested 14 by-elections since we were established, and we're only 2 years old. And if you look at the results for each of those 14 by-elections, we have performed, we've grown tremendously. And in fact, in the November Super Wednesday by-elections, we took a ward off the DA, and we came very close to taking another 3 or 4 wards off the DA on that day. In December, we contested by-elections, and we were neck and neck with the ANC in a ward. So I think that if you look at our performance in by-elections from when we were formed in 2019 to date, we have every reason to feel confident going into these general elections that we will be part of government, if not in government, in many places in South Africa.
We'll take a quick break, and if you could, three of you, please remain on the line so we can continue and round up our conversation when we return. I'm in conversation with COPE, the Good Party, as well as Jamah. We'll continue focusing on the local government elections, the date just being announced by the President. Please stay with us. A very good afternoon to you. This is your daytime update. The Independent Electoral Commission is meeting with several political parties to address their concerns, this ahead of the local government elections. The presidency has announced that South Africans will be able to go to the polls on the 27th of October. We are in conversation now this afternoon, about to continue our conversation with three of the parties that will be involved in that. We've got Brett Heron, the Good Party Secretary General, as well as Mr. Bloem, COPE's spokesperson, as well as Advocate Shameemah Salie, the spokesperson for the Jamah party. Just before we went to the break, I'd posed a question to the two gentlemen, and I'm going to pose it to you now, Advocate, about your performance in these by-elections. How do you rate it?
Well, Jamah won an award in a local election in 2019. In the by-elections, they had no victories. But this year, the party views itself as having made significant footprints, especially in areas where the party never previously contested local elections. So Jamah is confident that the party will make significant strides in the upcoming local elections, and also the fact that we've had some major changes. We have got a NEC executive on Jamah, which was it's the first in the history of Jamah. So the party is really striving to do very well, and we are encouraging our members to build up their confidence and go out there and ensure beneficial change happens during this particular local government elections.
It must have been, though, a disappointment this time round not to have performed as well as you did previously. What would you attribute that to? And could perhaps the emergence of the Cape Coloured Congress have anything to do with that?
Well, it is a possibility, but we've had lots of changes happening since 2019. You have COVID also happening, which had a major impact on the elections and getting out to the citizens, etc., because everybody was in a very, very different space at the particular time. What we are noticing now is with level 1, there's a lot of ease happening despite the concerns with regard to the voting, etc. We are noticing a lot of ease among citizens, which is a bit concerning considering that there's also this third wave happening. What I do want to mention is this mention of the third wave. We are going into the winter season. We're just going to be coming out of the winter season in October. So that is also another positive when Cyril Ramaphosa decided that, the slight shift on the particular day so that we can actually have a better feel of where we're going to be with regard to COVID-19 as well at that particular period of time. So there's a lot still to be watching out for, and not just being comfortable with the particular date that has been given, but we are contented, and we know that within the parties there's a lot of work being done, and we are confident that we will do better than we did in the by-elections.
All right, well, we'll leave our conversation at that for this afternoon. Thank you to all three of you for your time, as well as your views on not only the date of the 27th of October being now declared by the President and set for the local government elections, as well as, retrospecting on your performance in the by-elections that have just gone by. From COPE, we've got Mr. Bloem, the COPE's spokesperson. From Jamah, we've got Advocate Shameemah Salie, and from the Good Party, we've got Mr. Brett Heron. Thank you to all of you.